It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, and always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. Let us welcome Reverend Pastor Ed Domingo with his spouse. Let us welcome our flower girls, Zia and Love. Pastor Eric Centeno and his spouse, Ate Ami Centeno. Pastor Bernard Linus and Mrs. Olympia Linus. Pastor Vance Gamba and Mrs. Tess Gamba. Mr. June Geronimo and Mrs. Imelda Geronimo. Mr. Romulo Calderon and Mrs. Vicky Calderon. Mr. Wilfred Villagracia and Mrs. Yolanda okay. I stand corrected. Mr. Wilfredo Villagracia and Mrs. Yolanda Villagracia. Let us welcome Mr. Ganesha Yabut and Mrs. Lana Yabut. Mr. Joe Raymond Guevara and Mrs. Irene Guevara. Ladies and gentlemen, please bear with us as we welcome Mr. Johnny Alcantara and Mrs. Lani Alcantara. They will be celebrating their 25th anniversary this year. Take your time, Kuya. Thank you so much. Next, let us welcome Mr. Andy Villarin and Mrs. Jane Villarin. Mr. Ramon Galiano and Mrs. Billy Giliano. Galiano, rather. Sorry. Yolanda Villa. And for 47 years and counting, let us welcome Mr. Guillermo Musa and